conversation really nicely. Ooh. Sucio Talk. Shout out James Beard Award-winning chefs all over the country. Shout out 50 World's Best, whoever the fuck you are. Shout out to you, kitchen-wise, kitchen teams everywhere. But today, I'm sitting here with my main man, Mike Lanham. What up, B?
Hey, thanks for making the drive out.
Dude, fucking thank you for feeding me.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what we do, right?
I hear that. Dude, I'll tell you what, man, there's a lot of tasting menus that I've had, and I loved your pace. You kept up with me. You kept up with the way the diner eats at the pace that they were going. And I feel like a lot of tasting menu restaurants at some point just become a kind of a banquet service.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see it unfold and it not be that way. Oh, let's just wait for those tables to catch up and then we'll go. It was just like, no, they're ready. Let's go. We're going.
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of Anomaly is we're trying to give the people what they want.
Right.
And when they want food and not to stare into the kitchen for 15 minutes, that's the thing we need to give them. And
Yeah.
so, you know, that within our best possible effort, that's what we're going after.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
Dude, it was delicious food. I mean, man, where do we start? You've told me a little bit about this place, but has Anomaly been this thing that you've been thinking of since you've been cooking? Like, have you always wanted to own your own restaurant?
So it got to a point where I was working for other people and I was contributing to menus, and it just got weird.
Right.
Like, they were like, this doesn't match what we're doing. And I was like, well, I really need to be able to do that. And they're like, well, I don't think that's going to work for you anywhere. So I kind of got into a place where I had to strike out on my own. So I put in my notice at the last place I was working at, and I managed to break my back. yeah. I had kind of a pretty savage accident the day before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Shout out Mom and Dad for putting up with that one.
Car or what kind of accident?
No, so I climb. Going way back, I grew up playing a bunch of sports, wrestled all the way through college, switched to cycling, raced on the national racing calendar circuit for a couple of years.
Right.
At 24, 25, I can't remember. It's longer ago than I'm willing to admit. Retired and decided that I needed to get a real job, so I started cooking, which is, well, kind of a real job.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I trail run a lot and I climb, and I just had a freak accident. I was warming up bouldering. I passed out and I fell 25 feet to the ground completely unconscious. And it turns out I don't fall in a very coordinated manner when I'm not awake.
Right. Was it better that you fell not awake, though?
No, it was awful because I fell in a sitting position and I just absolutely trashed my L1.
Right, but they say, though, if you fall conscious, though, you'll tense up and break more shit.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I don't know. All I do know is I woke up in spasm from the waist up on both sides of my body.
Yeah.
Thought I was on fire. And that was a really bad day before Thanksgiving. I managed to sneak my way out of that situation and head to the hospital. And when I walked in, I was like, hey, I think my back's broken. And they're like, no, it's not.
You walked in?
Yeah, it hurt a lot. It was not the smartest thing I've ever done.
Right.
But
well, you didn't know your back was broken.
I had a pretty good indicator, to be real honest. I mean, nobody wants a part-time savage, right?
Yeah, right.
Like if I'm 25 feet up off the ground and I pass out and I fall, I got to own it and walk in there.
Yeah.
So I walked in there. They're like, there's no way anything's wrong. So they took some x-rays and they proceeded to freak out. They're like, depending on what happens tonight, you might never walk again. Which I feel like is a bit of hyperbole, but anyhow,
yeah.
I just put it in my head that I was definitely, that wasn't on the table. I'm way too active, and I have way too short an attention span not to be able to run around. So yeah, I went to sleep that night, woke up in the morning, could still move my feet around, just like I had planned.
Yeah.
And realized I was very sore and not feeling great and really having trouble recruiting all of my abdominal muscles. So I realized it was probably going to be a pretty rough road back.
Yeah.
So I did what everybody does, and I formed the LLC for this.
There you go.
So
Legal Zoom.
yeah, basically.
There you go.
It was something.com for
Yeah,
sure.
right. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Make it so easy.
When you're sitting in a hospital bed, you're like, well.
Who do you have around you at this time? You got family around you?
Yeah. So everybody was going to Thanksgiving at my sister's.
Right.
So back up, racing bikes. I had some pretty rough accidents because that is a high risk thing.
Right.
And so
How about this? Racing bikes. Let's start there.
Yeah.
How and when did you get into this? Is that when you were a younger kid?
Not really. So I was wrestling in college, and I was cutting a massive amount of weight. I'm about 4 inches shorter than all the other males in my family, and 2 inches shorter than my sister.
Right.
So
they were like, what is Mike going to do?
Well, basically what happened is I was cutting a ton of weight. I had kind of a role model that had my best successful interests at heart, but maybe not best health interests at heart. Anyhow, did well enough to get just a little bit of aid at D1, college. Did that for about 6 months, and I realized I'm not very smart when I'm dehydrated.
Yeah.
And I needed to also get an education in college.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time on exercise bikes cutting weight. And I could make the numbers go up higher than all my buddies. And I was like, well, maybe this is a thing. I bought a bike, I started riding outside, and I was like, wow, I'm reasonably quick. So I transferred to Auburn University, where I joined the cycling team. I was a Cat 1, which gets you into the big races 13 months later. And I got to race a bunch of cool national racing calendar stuff.
Were you sponsored with all that?
Yeah, I was on a team that took care of a lot of my entry fees. Basically, I managed to vagabond my way around for 4 years, so I didn't make any money, but I didn't lose any.
Right.
And I got to go to all these cool places and do all these races. The biggest thing I ever got to do was Tour of Utah. That was super cool. Levi Leipheimer won it that year and got third at the Tour, so it was a pretty legit race. But all I ever wanted to do with that career was get a top 10 result, and I got 11th 4 times, which is savage.
That's pretty damn close.
Right, yeah, I know.
You're like, I'm good.
Yeah, well, for somebody like me, I was just like, man, I gotta grow up and move on. Because, I'm 0.5% away from being a big enough freak to get done what I want to get done. And I mean, I was doing everything. I was counting macros, weighing food, doing all kinds of ridiculous things, and I just couldn't quite get there.
Did you have a life during this time?
Oh, hell no. Not even kind of. I mean, some people who race did, but anything worth doing is worth way overdoing.
Right.
Hence the broken back that we'll get to later. But anyhow, I've kind of always been a little bit of a maniac in that way. So when I realized I didn't quite have what I wanted to get there, it was really rough, man. It took me a couple weeks, and I was like, I gotta move on. So I got to do some cool things, and it's probably why I ended up in California, because I got to race in Oregon a bunch. Did San Dimas stage race and Redlands Bicycle Classic a couple times.
Yeah.
Shout out to SoCal. And it was really cool, and I got to meet a lot of really, really cool people and had some really interesting experiences. But
how long are these races?
Well, it depends. Like, a lot of them are 5 or 6 days, 110-ish miles.
So how does that work? I've never really understood that. If it's days, do you have a certain amount of time during the day to get distance?
You all start, and then there's a winner for the day, and then they keep overall time.
Right.
So, like, certain days, like the thing that I was decent at was going up mountains. So if it was a mountain day, it was a day for me. If it was a flat day with a sprint finish, I just don't have those muscle fibers. I'm okay, but I'm not great, and I'm in no danger of winning a national race calendar race in a field sprint. Like you could do 100 million of those, and the best I'd get is like 54th. So those guys are freaks. What
is freakish? What is different about them? Is it mindset?
No, it's the ability to out a large amount of raw wattage for a very short period of time. So it's like the difference between a marathoner and somebody that wins the 100-meter dash.
Right.
But in cycling, that 100-meter dash guy has to figure out how to get through 105 miles of BS and crummy roads and crosswinds and whatever, and it's a big team thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you need somebody that's crazy enough to just like pin it at 40 miles an hour through a corner, be willing to die to get the duct tape line first, and then throw their hands up and yell a lot.
Right.
And that was never me. I totally would have taken risks if I had that skill set, but I did not. So the point of that is some people focus on winning a certain day, and then some people focus on winning the whole thing. And you know, I was talented enough to participate in a legitimate way in those races, but I was in no danger of being in the top 3, 4, 5. And that's a tough pill to swallow when you're young. But like, luckily, I had enough smart people around me to be like, all right, man, like, do you want, you know, I could have maybe gotten where I wanted to if I did that till I was what I am now, 38, and I'd have 1 or 2 reasonable results by luck and volume of race starts and whatever. But then I'd be stuck doing something. I'd be restarting life at 38 or 39.
Yeah.
And I had teammates that are awesome people, and it's what they want to do. But I got to see what that looked like, and that just didn't look like a path that I thought that I would be successful traveling.
Yeah.
So I moved on, and you know, I know a lot of people that still do that are way better than I ever was. And they stayed in it, and they made it, and it was super cool. But I just was not quite there. And that is, like, there's no feeling in the world like, you know, your hands are numb, you can't breathe anymore, you come across the finish line, you didn't get what you want, and there is no excuse in the world and no reason in the world, and there's nothing else you could have done, and you just didn't quite get there. And so when I need to be into work early and I want to sleep in, I think about what that felt like. That informs a lot of my decisions.
Because you can't control that, right?
Right. Well, I can't control that, but I can sure as hell control, you know, getting to work early, being organized, getting things set up for the guys, doing things the right way. Like the thing I love about kitchens is it's not a talent thing. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but it's effort and it's planning and it's 1% every week for the rest of your life. And being able to put that effort in and see where we were 7 years ago and see where we are now is really cool and really motivating. But, you know, if I ever feel a little low on the motivation, I think about what it felt like to do everything I could, weigh my food, sleep perfectly, whatever, and still not make it. Like, the thing is, nothing's ever guaranteed, but what I can really guarantee you is that if you don't do the work, that guarantees that you're not going to get what you want.
Definitely. Did it make you question your spirituality? Like, as it relates to like your relationship with whoever you think the maker is and what your destiny is?
I mean, man, when you're in a situation like that and you're hurting super bad and you didn't get what you wanted, you question everything for a hot minute. But luckily, I've got enough really cool people and supportive people around me that I was like, all right, well, time to move on. Like, I have given this my best effort for, like, you know, I did it for 4 or 5 years at a pretty high level, and the last 2, very legit.
Yeah.
And like, not everybody gets a trophy. And you got to realize that, and then you got to go look at the thing that you can get the trophy in. And then you go after that. It's the next best thing. You get a setback, and you plan, and then you go for it. And that's the way that I've always attacked life. You break your back, you set up an LLC, you get a team of rehab. Like, see, so, you know, things happen for a reason. I had some people that would put me back together when I made dumb decisions flying down the side of a mountain, cycling. And I got these 4 people in a room, and they were like, man, Mike, what'd you do this time? I was like, I don't even want to talk about it, but we got to figure out how to recruit core muscles again. And so we sat in a room, and I was like, can I do push-ups or sit-ups? They're like, that is absolutely the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You may not. Do not do that. I was like, how about pull-ups? They're like, that's going to hurt horribly. I was like, right, but like, hurt.
I need to do something.
Hurt doesn't matter. Will I recruit abdominal muscles quicker? And they're like, yeah, you sure will. So Like, right now I can rip off 20 pull-ups whenever I want because I climb a bunch. Then it would be one really slow, horrible, painful pull-up.
Right.
Like tears running down my face, wait 20 minutes, crack out another one. And I'd do like 4 a day, and then I'd have to take like 3 days of rest because my abdominal muscles just didn't work. And after 7 or 8 weeks of this, I could get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And 10 weeks later, I was trail running again, and then I was climbing on ropes again in like 11 weeks, and I was bouldering in 13 because I'm clearly an idiot.
Right, right.
But like,
your mind doesn't deter you.
Yeah.
You're just like, fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to kind of send it. Like, at the end of my life, I'd like to slide into the grave sideways with my hair on fire. If I
Right.
So, that was my path, and that's what I chose, and I have no regrets. I'm glad I did it.
Hail of gunfire, baby.
Yeah, and it's informed how I cook and how I try to deal with the team and all of those things. You give it your best effort. Like,
did you cook? You cooked before you started professionally again with this LLC, right?
So no.
Okay.
So, yeah. Why? So basically, what happened is I was training a lot, training really, really, really hard.
Okay.
And it got to a point where Barilla pasta just was not doing it anymore. It was like I had so much rice and so much pasta with oil that I just couldn't anymore. So I was like, I gotta learn to cook because taking this out of the box and this out of the can is rough. So I got to a point where I started to learn. I was teaching myself how to cook, and then I had a friend that raced triathlons that I trained on the bike with once a week. Shout out Zach Knowles. He's in Seattle now. I think he's a nurse, but I'm not entirely sure what he's doing or where he's at. But anyhow, he'd come over and teach me, okay, this is how you make a basic sauce. This is how you make a roux. This is because I grew up in the South, so like if you didn't know how to make a roux, what are you doing?
Right.
So like and so I was like, man, this is awesome. This is really a lot of fun. And at that point, the writing was starting to be on the wall with the cycling thing. I was like, man, I'm not getting where I want to get. And next thing I know, I'm cooking as many hours a day as I'm cycling, just in my house. I woke up one day and I 5-6 hour training ride, ice bath, towel off, like 9 hours of cooking. It's like 2 a.m. I'm like, not only am I not going to sleep right, but like I just cooked for 9 hours and didn't like I don't know. It was
the time
weird.
just passed.
Yeah, I just kind of Forrest Gumped it, and one day I started cooking, and there we were, and I couldn't stop, and it was just so much fun, and being able to eat things and see progress, and the whole thing just really appealed to me. So when I quit cycling, I worked for free at a French fine dining steakhouse. It was kind of like a clone of the Les Halles concept called.
Okay.
Viande Rouge in Atlanta. And I worked there like 80 hours a week for free for like 6 months before culinary school or anything. And I got my ass kicked.
Yeah, I bet.
Hard.
For free.
Yeah, totally for free. Like first guy in, last guy out. Like if we were slow, they would just cut everybody and have me cook I forgot to mention it was a restaurant opening. So I started like day 2 of this thing existing. We'd do like 114 covers with 2 cooks one day, and the next day it's 6, and then it's back up to like 130. So
can't prep for it.
Oh no. That's so like it was trial by fire, and they were not always nice to me, and I was not always useful.
Right.
But like I loved it. And by the end of the 6 months, I at least had a little bit of respect from these people. They're like, this guy has no idea what he's doing, but like, damn, he works hard.
At least he's trying.
Yeah, like he's running into walls a lot, but he's running full speed. So I decided I was looking at, and I had a bunch of scholarships because if you were at a high level athlete and you had a pre-existing college degree, and I stacked in a bunch of scholarships, and I was like, it looks like I may actually be able to afford this. So I was like, sure, I'll go. And I don't think it's everybody's path, but I think it was good for me because it gave me the structure and I understood what was expected of me in a kitchen. And it also fast-tracked me into places I totally didn't belong way too early. Because I realized 3 months in, I was like, wow, this is getting expensive. I better get a job outside of here. So I got to work at some Michelin-starred places way too early in my career. And just, like, learning how to tread water in that environment, and then going back to culinary school, it was like, it was the double whammy because you see what it looks like when it's legit, and then you have the structure. It's like this one place you're like, oh my God, I just got to not get fired. And this other place you're like, hey, I'm pretty okay at this. And so you balance those back and forth. And by the time I'd done whatever 2.5 years of that, I was reasonably proficient. And I had like 6 years of experience because I did not sleep.
What Michelin places were you working?
So I did my externship at Auberge. I worked at Terra for a couple weeks. Back then the pay scale was...
So you were up in Napa country.
Yeah. Back then the pay scale was pretty savage. And so I was making $8 an hour at Terra, and then Auberge lured me away with 10. And I was like, man, I might not lose my entire if I work for $10 an hour. And they paid me for overtime too. And you got to remember, I'm in culinary school, so I'm slow as shit. So I'm getting 2 hours of overtime a day at least. Because again, they're like, this guy is a moron, but man, does he work hard. And like, you know, by the time I got through my externship, I was actually useful. So I was like, hey, can I work full time outside of school? And they're like, well, we're going to need somebody to do 60 hours a week. And I'm like, doing the math. I'm like, well, I'm in school for 40. So 40 plus 60 is 100. And that probably won't work. They're like, but we have this other property, Soul Bar. So I bounced to there and kind of finished my year within the company. Man, oh man, that was cool. They were uncommonly nice to me. And I got the big bump to 12 an hour there, which was pretty sick.
Soul Bar is dope.
Yeah. And it's cool what they're doing now too. It's a little bit more casual, but it's like a community thing, and I really dig that. But anyhow, got done with that. Graduated from bounced around at a restaurant or two trying to find myself.
Yeah, what kind of what restaurants? Goose and Gander?
No. So
that place is horrible. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it right here.
We're going to cut that out, guys.
That's okay. But man's entitled to his goddamn opinions. You hear me? Go ahead.
David Sucio, ladies and gentlemen.
You get what you get.
But yeah, I worked at Le Toque, and I couldn't cut it. I got canned, man. Straight up.
Straight up fired.
Well, they just basically, somebody staged who was better than me, and they moved me along.
Right.
And looking back at it, I'd have done the same thing. So I licked my wounds, and I moved down to Spruce, and they gave me a great opportunity. And I was there for 18 months and grew a ton, got to put things on the menu.
Yeah. Who was the chef at Spruce at that time?
Well, so the guy running the kitchen was John Madriaga. So that was a really cool period in time because that was a savage kitchen. So we had John, who was at Manresa for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And so I actually got to cook 12 Nights of Chocolate with him this year, which was super fun.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
because
cool.
it's like, I own my own place now, and he's the CDC at a place, but he'd be like, chef, I need these scallops perfect. I was like, yes, chef. And then I was like, wait a minute, wow. But it was really cool. It was like I was working for him all over again, but it was really cool. He had Helena, who was one of the people. I believe she was exec pastry chef for the company, for Bacchus for a while, at least pastry exec at Spruce for a minute. She was there helping him out. So it was kind of like Cheers. It was really fun. Then Ricky owns Six Test Kitchen out of, I want to say, San Luis Obispo. He was a sous chef right before I came in.
Yeah.
He won a Michelin star out of a restaurant in a garage. So
really?
Yeah, savage level of talent.
Where's that?
San Luis Obispo. It's called Six Test Kitchen.
Out of a garage?
Yeah. It's sick. It's a styled out garage.
Right.
Or at least that's what he calls it. It's pretty luxe if you look at it. I think. But anyhow, so I got those two guys. We had, gosh, who else did we have? We had Izzy Farrelly. She was from Ireland. She was a savage. She's a CDC at a restaurant back there somewhere. Juan Regao, who's a buddy of mine. I think he's the CDC at Selby's now. He was a sous at Sons and Daughters back in the day.
Yeah.
Sous chef within that company for a while.
Bacchus Group is dope.
Yeah. Shirley, she was a sous at Aquarello for a while. I think she's down in LA, maybe at Cato. I don't know for sure. But
Yeah.
she's savage in a kitchen too. There's a lot of talent. I mean, for the first 6 months, I'd go in there and and my homie Drew Frazier, he bounced out of the industry. He's doing some really cool stuff with art, but he was holding down the meat station. There was a guy named Mel who was kind of like would work all the stations, really solid guy. But anyhow, I just remember going in there and like for the first 6 months, I was like, oh, sorry, one more. Orlando Pagan, he's at Wild Common in Charleston.
Okay.
Shout out Orlando. He got a James Beard nomination a little while back. He does cool stuff. And then Stephen Pellis, who was like maybe 26, was a sous chef back
You
then.
recognize all these people.
Yeah, man, you gotta like. Here's the thing: if you're working somewhere cool,
Yeah.
you get up and you go to work. You're excited because you're working with people that give a damn.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like that's what
That's
gets
very
me.
rare.
That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Like this was one of the very few opportunities where everybody was super motivated. So Steven's their corporate exec now. So I got to work with all these cool people. And I'm leaving out all kinds of people that were there that were awesome as well, that have moved on to do really cool things.
Yeah.
But long story short, it's like you go in and you're like, man, I got to keep up. And like for the first 6 months, I'm just like, man, I'm terrible at this. And then you look back on it now and you're like, I wasn't terrible. Everybody was just really good.
Right.
And so I did that for a while, and that was really cool. And then I wanted to see something else, and I went to Comey. And that was not my most successful tenure.
Right.
I'm 0 for Oakland. Oakland has beat me up every time I've been there.
Whooped your motherfucking ass.
Yeah, for sure, though.
Who was at that kitchen when you were there? The CDC.
The CDC was Keone. He and I.
Okay, so that was before.
Yeah, Keone.
Okay, gotcha.
Keone and I didn't. You saw how I run my kitchen.
Yeah.
We're opposite ends of the spectrum in basically every part of our lives.
Right.
And so I held on way longer than I should have. And it wasn't working. I was living out of this Laotian lady's attic in Montclair.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Not the best all around.
Yeah, and just kind of a dumpster fire in
Yeah,
general.
getting destroyed every night.
Yeah, getting destroyed. Not my best work. Just at some point I managed to like fracture my foot and do a bunch of other stuff. Still working on that because whatever, why not? So
do you think some of those people look and they're like, Mike Lanham has a restaurant?
Oh, I know it. I know it. They're like, this idiot?
This fucking guy's got a restaurant.
But I mean, it goes to show you put your head down.
Yeah, baby, it doesn't matter. You have more than most of those people who are at, look, man, it doesn't matter what level, like you said, talent you have. It just is about drive.
The only thing that matters is left foot, right foot.
Drive. You got it, bro.
Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. For the rest of your life until you either fall over dead or win. And whichever comes first, sign me up.
Right,
but at least I know I gave it what I had.
Yeah.
So, that was a setback. But then my old executive sous chef from Auberge called me up and he's like, hey, I'm closing this professional restaurant. It's got 5 months left.
Yeah.
We'll pay you well. You can design the food for half the menu. And we got Sunday and Monday off guaranteed. And I was like, whoa, 2 days off?
Yeah.
I was like, but do I have to go forage for 8 hours on one of them? And he was like, absolutely not.
He's like, what?
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. And I was
Did
like,
you have to do that at Benu?
I'm
sorry, Comey?
We were responsible for our own garnish.
Oh,
and
got
you
it.
get quick. Like when you start at the beginning, it sucks. But like you get to a point where you're super quick at it. Like later on, and it's like a 30-minute thing.
Yeah.
But like when you're starting, and like, man, I owe them a lot for that because I go through like all the garnish you had tonight, I picked up today. Mm-hmm. Like I have spots, and it's funny. Sometimes I'll see the Morcella Wild Foods people out, and I'll be like, hey, I know the good spot because I'm seeing the people that do this professionally. So that's cool. But like, it was good for me. It's what I needed. I got my tail kicked.
Well,
but like
now you don't have to pay for garnish, chef.
yeah. Well, I mean, if we
Well, you
yeah,
got to pay for it with your hard labor.
yeah, well, it's not hard labor if you figure out how to do that. And that's a whole sustainability thing. Like if you forage in an area and you don't tear it out of the ground and you're not a dick, and you respect nature, then it's gonna take care of you back, which is kind of a lesson for life. Like if you do something responsibly, it's always gonna work out better. So yeah, but anyhow, that was rough. So I bounced. I was burnt, like super crispy. Like I was like, man, maybe I'm not cut out for this because
really, you're gonna quit cooking.
I mean, man, I've been knocked down a lot. I always get back up, but I stayed on the canvas for a hot moment there. I felt I took some time.
You took the 10 count.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I took some time to feel really sorry for myself, and then I was like, man, look at yourself. Like. I come from a family of people where they're like, you get unconditional love and support, but you are expected to make something of yourself. You're expected to be a positive member of the community, and you're expected to, above all else, try to be kind to people while you're doing it.
Right.
And so, I'm looking at that, and I'm like, man, I can't quit now. I can't quit here. This is the wrong thing. Like, so many people have invested in me.
Yeah.
And I'm just finally starting to get serviceable at this craft. I need to grow up and get my head back in the game and do this. So I ended up living right behind Visa Tui with two people that ended up being my best friends. Shout out Andre and Kat. They're married now. I was their last roommate a couple times a year. They still have the old room that I stayed in up there. I call them up. I'm like, hey, I need to get out of the city. And they're like, all right, come up for 3 or 4 days. We cook things, mess around, test recipes, just BS, are in Napa, and it's a great reset.
That's dope.
Yeah, I owe them a lot. I mentioned to you, we were trying to get together in February, and I had a pretty savage, setback in my personal life.
Yeah.
And, I owe them and a couple of my friends for helping me get through that. Again, got knocked down pretty hard, but got back up, got through it. And now the restaurant's better for it, and I'm better for it as a person, and I got more life skills than I had before for sure.
Right.
I feel like that's kind of what restaurants are about. Like, at the end of the day, learning how to cook at a really high level is important, but I think you can take skills for life. Like you were telling me before you set up. You said it used to take you an hour, and now it's 15 minutes. You took that chef mentality into setting up your gear for your podcast. Like, that's a way of life, So I feel like that's the most important lesson that I've learned from this so far.
Yeah.
And man, did I learn that the hardest way ever at Comey. It was rough. And I worked my notice, and it was savage, and it felt awful.
All the way up until the last day.
Yeah. Well, actually, funny story. They called me the last day. I was like, I'm out. I'm gone. I'm done with this. Like, I'm leaving with my tail between my legs. At some point, I'm going to be okay again, but it sure isn't now.
Yeah.
And they called me the next Tuesday, and they're like, the new guy didn't show up. I was like, I'll be right there, chef. And I'm in my car on the way there, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm already done. So I showed up for one more day, and then left, and it was like, all right, that's the last one.
Right.
But
Were they nice to you that day?
I don't know that it was any better. Everybody's cool until you're messing up their food or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't excelling in the way that I did in the kitchens that I was in after that. It just, a large part of me, I need to have room to do my best, and I need to be communicated with in a way that's respectful. And you saw service tonight. I communicate with everybody very respectfully. And that's because, that is the basis of all communication comes with respect. And I mean, I grew up wrestling and whatever. And so that was a very respect-based thing too. And so if you get in my personal space box and you raise your voice with me, we're going to have a problem.
Right.
And so, and if you don't, we're never going to have a problem. I'm going to mirror what energy you give me. And so, everywhere I've been at since then, people have been super cool.
Yeah.
And I've been really lucky. And I'm not bagging on past restaurants either. It's just, sometimes things didn't work. And restaurants are restaurants are like shoes, man. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't fit.
Right.
You know?
You got to move on.
Yeah, you do. And I think the lesson I took from that is sometimes you should move on earlier rather than later because, it's you're not the fit.
Yeah.
But, also everybody that does this has an ego. And I'm like, you got to make a year so you can put it on your resume. But, at a point you're like, well, eventually I want to work for myself. Would I hire me? Yeah. Well, then my resume doesn't matter anymore, does it?
Right.
So time to get out.
It's all coming full circle.
Yeah. But you don't think about that on the front end. You're like, oh, man.
Definitely not. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Yeah. But it's like, I got to have this perfect resume. I got to work at this place. I got to work at this place. I got to work at this place. It's like, well, right. But like, where can I work where it's respectful? And I try to keep my circle really close. There are a couple of, I don't hang out with a lot of chefs, but the ones I do, I respect how they run their place more than skill level. There are a lot of really skilled people that are doing it the wrong way, and I don't want to be part of that. I think there needs to be a new generation of people that are doing things the right way, because as we saw in 2020, this thing can fold up into a box and disappear at any moment.
Goodbye.
Yeah, and so...
It's because we don't have togetherness. That's why.
And like, I'm fortunate that I have people in the back burner who are going to slot in that I'm going to hire when some of my people choose to leave, whenever that is. Like, I got a line that, find a place where that happens. And it's because we're really tight. Like, somebody the other day, they were like, you guys are like pack animals. You do everything together. And it's like, well, yeah, there's a core team of 5 of us, and we got a guy that helps us out. And, we got to do 45, 12, 13, 14 course menus on Friday and Saturday night. And there's no time for anything other than hustling, trying to be precise, and helping each other out.
Business.
Yeah. Like Savory Side, when they're done, they hop over to pastry and help run food. That's what we got. So
how do you handle that frustration and like when things aren't going your way?
Well, the other night we picked up 8 covers after we opened the door.
Okay.
So we try to be as accommodating as possible. There was a party of 4 that has a reservation in July for the same day. And they're like, hey, can we come eat? We drove all the way from, I can't remember where it was, but it was like an hour and a half away. And I was like, oh,
sure.
I was like, I can't send these people away. I was like, can you come back at 8:15? And they're like, yeah. So at that point, I send one of our back servers around here to build a table for them. And we just made it happen. And like, we didn't have the 6th guy on that day because he had something else that he was committed to. And so we did 24 11-course tasting menus with myself and 4 cooks. And it went really well because everybody hustled. And like people, like the wine professionals here who their primary thing is doing wine, they would do wine and then they'd circle back and run food too. It was like it took a community, like that's the thing. Like in a small restaurant, you just have to have the mentality that I'm going to get it done and we're going to support our teammates, and it either goes or it goes. It's going one way or another. Like, while we're here, we may as well win, right?
Right.
Like, and also the high that you get from doing something you shouldn't be able to do, that never gets old. I don't know about you, I've never gotten sick of winning. I'm like, oh man, winning's kind of boring. Winning rocks.
Right.
When you really, really clawed your way through it and worked for it. And like the team really came together, and that's why I'm in this. Like that's super cool. And you're going to tables at the end of the night, and like the way we perceive things, like the way we see things leave the kitchen, and the speed. So like you had mentioned, we keep a higher pace. So I'm like, I'm expoing and running food and trying to keep this pace that you were talking about for 24 people, and I got 4 people in the kitchen cooking while I'm doing that, and like we're running food to tables, and I'm tapping people on the shoulder before I do it, and I was like, hey, fire 31 and 33. And they go back to the kitchen, and they're expoing for a second while I'm at the table. So, like, having that depth, we have 3 people in our kitchen that can expo. So, it's, we don't have many people, but we have a lot of people with a lot of talent and a ton of determination. Like, the group of people I'm surrounded with right now are the most driven individuals I've seen in a kitchen.
Yeah, they have quite an extensive background.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And I kind of laugh every time I look around. I'm like, man, this was not on my bingo card 7 years ago.
What do you got back there? Name them.
So we got Zach is our executive pastry sous. He shows up day 1. 3 days in, he's up to speed. 5 days in, he's figuring out how to do things quicker. 7 days in, he's like, I think this is slightly tighter and quicker. That's who you want. So he had to go back to school. He graduates, by the way, valedictorian.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he's on it, man. And so he comes back, and now we're squared away there. We have a guy who was executive sous chef at Aphotic when they won the Star.
Yeah.
And then was CDC for a little while, and then bounced here. He's our sous. Also is cooking protein right now.
Yeah.
And crushing it. We have Alina. She is a refugee from Ukraine. She worked in Italy for a long, long time at some really high-level spots. She's very, very, very precise and takes care of a couple things there. And then we have Gabriel Ventura, who has his own business. The man has his own vegan Salvadorian food business. And we've been working together for 6 years, and he just likes it. He has fun, and he is incredibly talented. Like most of the time, on a busy night, he expos, and I kind of fill in gaps because he's been sous chef at a bunch of big places. And that really frees me up to do things, like shake hands, kiss babies, that sort of thing. But also, like, if they need a hand somewhere in the kitchen, I can bounce there and whatever. And then we have this crazy Irish guy, Sean Walsh, who is the most interesting man in the world, who hops in and helps us out every now and then as well. And he's, he worked at Key in Australia, worked at Saison, fills in at Gozu sometimes. He's just kind of a gun for hire right now. And he's awesome. And then occasionally Sabrina, whose last name escapes me right now, she was Sue at Osito. She's the kitchen manager at La Cocina now. She kind of wants out of the spotlight, but she's a great person. And she'll hop in and help us out occasionally as well.
Gotcha.
So like, and then there's a couple other people, like this shirt that I'm wearing, this Anomaly t-shirt. There's a guy named Chris who filled in for us for like 3 weeks. Just like hit us up on Instagram. He's like, hey, I got a 3-week gap.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we got at least 3 weeks gap to fill in terms of hiring people. And so, he showed out, was awesome. And then his last day, he made us these sick t-shirts.
That's dope.
Yeah. I mean, so that's kind of what it's all about for me. If you can connect with people like that, that's really important to me. And then
that's all that matters, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a guy who I was trying to bring back. He basically was my sous chef during the pop-up. 24-year-old kid surrounded by people, and that I haven't even gotten into our wine team. Francis has like 20 years of experience, and then he's our wine director and handles a lot of our email and GM responsibilities. And then Marcus is our somm, but he came from running the wine program at the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay. So he worked at Manresa for a while and Bird Dog for a little while and a couple other places.
How did you find them?
So they just kind of showed up. So like I put stuff out, and all of these people I've hired have been through a circle, like a tiny little community I've built.
Okay.
And so someone will vouch for someone. They'll be like, hey, I know this person's solid. They'll come stage. And I'm like, wow, this solid's kind of an understatement. This person's really good.
Yeah.
And there's this buy-in, because when you've been recommended by somebody who's like within the community, you don't want to let them down, right?
Right.
So that's like an extra level of commitment there. And then when, nobody's going to be here forever, right? Like, I hope not. I want people to go on and do great things. I want everybody in this kitchen to be twice as good as I am when they're done with this. That's the goal, for me to be completely irrelevant. At some point, I will be old and broken and tired, and hopefully I'll get the hell out of the way for the next generation who's doing stuff I couldn't even think of.
You can. Yeah.
But right now, I gotta,
You're going all for it.
Yeah.
What's the goal? Michelin?
That would be lovely. But here's the thing.
Chef, you can sit here and say, I want Michelin.
I mean...
I want it.
Does anybody not? I mean...
I think there's a lot of people out there who are scared to say that they want it.
I mean, you
know...
know...
they'll get labeled whatever.
We want everything, right? Like
I want it.
More than for me, I want it for the people that show up and work hard, man. Like, I want them to be like... this system that I bought into, this crazy thing that I'm doing
paid off
with this this short guy with this crazy hair and this squeaky voice that's bouncing all around the kitchen and has too much energy. Like this crazy vision that I believed in, I want them to see something from this. Like, I owe that to them. That's another thing. You know, if I want to hit the snooze alarm, I'm like, well, they're here. Like, the sous chefs are incredible, man. I'm like, all right, I need you in by this time. They're always 15 minutes early.
Right.
And I'm just like you can't look at that and you know, and do anything other than give your best.
Right.
And if you do, you know, you're a fraud. So
right.
Like, you gotta get it together.
Yeah.
You can't lead from the back.
No.
That doesn't work.
That does not work.
Like, you know, in most cases, a lot of people don't know what this building looks like without me in it. And one day when I get older, that'll change. But I'm not quite old yet.
Right.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But I'm not there yet.
You have family?
Yeah. Well, no. I am
like a wife.
No, I'm quite single right now.
Okay, got it.
I am on the market.
On the market. There you go.
On the market. Yeah.
Chef.
Quite actively dating.
You don't need them, baby. You don't need them.
I mean, it's kind of nice. I'm not gonna lie. You know.
There you go.
It's that's so.
Are you closed any days?
Yeah, Sunday and Monday.
Okay, got it. So you got 2 days off.
For like a long period of time, I worked 6.5 or 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And then I grew up.
Yeah.
And I learned, like, hey man, there's more to life than this. And when I'm not here 7 days a week, I'm better. And when, like, that's another thing we focus on with the team. When you're here, you have got to give yourself to this thing that we're doing. But when you're not here, don't be here.
Yeah.
Like be with your family, be with your friends, be with people you care about. Do things outside of this place. This is so important. But there is life outside of here. And I feel like that's actually a thing my team has given me. So my opening sous chef, Alexei Kvazov, left us because he got a really sick private chef gig.
Yeah.
Shout out Alexei. He gave us 4 weeks notice. And like, kind of the last thing he said to me is, he's like, hey man, like, you need to work less. He's like, you and I have both seen this movie and we know how it ends.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, you got to get down to 5 days a week. And I was like, well, I feel like I can't. And he's like, well, then it's not worth it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was cool. He stops by to visit. And he walked in the other day and he's like, man, you look way less like a corpse. And I was like, savage, chef. Super savage.
Yeah.
But you know, he brought us a tart from Maison Nico. And that's the thing. We've built like this small community of people that are really cool. And I feel really lucky to be a part of that. And I think I've accidentally facilitated that. I think some of it might be my fault somehow. And I never saw that, you know, happening. When I started this, it was about me and my ego and my food. And at some point, I accidentally grew up. And I'm grateful I did.
Yeah.
But it probably wasn't a short process. And I bet you could look at my first sous chef job and now and how I deal with people. And there's probably a stark contrast if I had to guess.
Right. I think we all go through those.
Yeah, I remember like the first day I was a sous chef, I was I went home and I called all my sous chefs that I gave shit to and apologized. I was like, I am so very sorry for what a problem I probably was.
Right.
Like it's one of those things where, like, you know, like, cooks, quit your job now and start that pop-up while you still know everything and can open a restaurant tomorrow.
Right.
Like, you know, and then you all of a sudden you have to manage people and they mess something up and it's your fault. And you're like, but wait, what's this? And your chef's like, that's accountability. Welcome to the big leagues. Good luck.
Exactly.
You're like, wait, but I have to cook and they have to cook. And he's like, actually, this is going to mess with you. The real trick is to teach them how to cook and delegate things to them. And you're like, no, that's not possible. I'll just run around and do everything. And you do that for a couple weeks, and
that's not possible.
Yeah, you about fall over dead.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, I should probably learn how to teach some people how to do some things. And then, you know, I was uncommonly lucky to have the pop-up to mess around with cuisine and figure out like who I was culinarily and where I was coming from.
Where was your first pop-up?
Jersey in Soma. It no longer exists, like almost everywhere else that I've ever popped up at.
How'd you find it?
So you get on Yelp and you look at places that look like they might be struggling, and you're like, are you guys open on Sunday? And they're like, no. And I'm like, you could be for a price. What are you asking? And then, I know, man. It's the craziest thing in the world. And you're just like,
hey, it's a good idea.
Yeah, but like, man, the thing is, you've been throttled in all these high level kitchens, and then all of a sudden you roll into a high level pizzeria, and it's like, you have this like Jiro dreams of sushi vision.
Yeah, and it's not that.
Yeah, and you're like, you come in the first day and you're like, there's flour on the floor and walls, and you're like, you call the people up and you're like, huh? And they're like, oh, the night cleaners come on Monday, and you're like, well, shit, it looks like I'm starting today on my hands and knees.
Yeah, literally, you have to clean before you start.
Yeah, and you're like cleaning the roux off the floor and walls, and you're just like, this is savage.
Yeah.
And like you're resetting the dish station and whatever, and then you're behind, and then you have like the two people in your life that are kind enough not to tell you they think you're an idiot,
right,
to show up and help you with this thing, which is wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that experience, like, and they're in the industry too, so like they're giving their day off to do this horrible pop-up at this pizzeria. And like the people at the pizza, like that's the other thing. Like you learn that like in the food business, there are people that don't do high level food, and they're awesome too. Like nobody that owns their own place got there through not working their tail off and like doing the right things. And like sometimes it doesn't work out for you, and that's brutal. But it's like it kind of like after getting my tail kicked for like a decade, it kind of restored my faith in humanity a little. I was like, wait, so this person who's like kind of struggling is willing to let me come in there on Sunday and like, you know, Field of Dreams this? You know, like I'm putting this pop-up out there, and I just believe that these people are going to show up. And at this point, I'm doing like 8 courses for $45.
How'd you sell tickets?
Oh, God.
Talk?
Man, no, well, eventually, but the first one was savage. I put something out on Eventbrite, which people are like, what's that? And it's like me and a bunch of house parties. Yeah. And guess what? The house parties are selling tickets, and I'm not.
Right.
So, like, for the first pop-up, we took 0 rezos. Not one. So I don't know if it counts as canceled because nobody cared, but that hurt.
No one showed up to your pop-up.
Well, like, we didn't have it because, like, I'm like...
You didn't sell any tickets.
Yeah. And so I'm like, that was another time I got knocked down, and I was like, I was going to be real sad for about 3 days, and I was like, all right. So I reached out to some people that knew some things about marketing, and I was like, what do I do? They're like, Eventbrite? Really, bro? So
they're like, you got to start selling this shit 6 months before you have it.
Yeah. So then we started doing only Sundays on Talk. And the second one, I'm not going to lie, was like 50% my friends and family. So like that's another thing. When you start this journey, like picture yourself in like Wembley Stadium, some huge stadium. Yeah. And you got a kitchen in the middle, and there's like 7 people in the corner with like party blowers. And that's your family. And those are the only people that care. Yeah. At all. Nobody else cares. Like you're like, hey, I have this pop-up, and your former kitchen mates are like, this guy's an idiot. Like they're like, I didn't have a ton of faith in him to begin with, but like now, man, this is like bottom of the barrel. Like this is embarrassing, man. And so like, you know, so you got those 7 people in the corner with the party blowers. Yeah. And then you go a couple weeks down the road, and you got 5 more people somehow, right? And you're like, sick. Out of 100,000 seats, we got 12 filled. Right. And then the way I imagine it is eventually you find your way down the road, and you're, you know, Bjorn Franson or Gordon Ramsay or, you know, Dominique Krenn seems to be doing all right. She's in Time Magazine. She's got a couple of restaurants. And they got a full stadium. But the trick is at some point you realize it doesn't matter. Like, you're doing it for you, and you're doing it for the people that were there at the beginning anyway.
Yeah.
Like, the ride or die crowd that's like when something bad happens, when you don't meet a goal, when you embarrass yourself and fail very publicly, which, let's be real here, I've done several times. Those are the people you go back to, and they're like, it's all right, man. But like next time, maybe put yourself out there a little less.
Right.
And whatever. And I'm too dumb, so I'm like, nah, we're going twice as hard next time.
Yeah.
But it's a process, and it's really cool. And you know, I had 5 years to figure out what kind of food I wanted to cook, and I wanted everybody to care so bad, and nobody did.
Right.
Like, we were selling a pop-up every week, but I was trying to get Eater, I was trying to get the Chronicle, I was trying to get anybody to pay attention to us.
They never showed up.
No, they didn't care.
When did they finally start caring?
I don't know that they care yet.
Really?
I mean, like, when we opened, there was an article, and you know, we were a hot restaurant when we were young and whatever. But
how long have you been open now?
We opened Friday the 13th in 2023, and we had all the
Of course.
Yeah, we had all the
of course.
We had all the Friday the 13th festivities. We had a hailstorm.
Yeah,
we had all this other crazy stuff happen. You know, the water machine was on the fritz and sprayed a bunch of water in the floor.
Yeah.
Both dish machines stopped working. We had to call the dish techs, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it turns out you can't like use it like a microwave. You gotta be like smarter with this." You know, there's all the things that you think you know. We did hundreds of pop-ups over 5 years in 11 different sites. I hit everywhere in the city, from Soma to Bayview to the Mission to just wherever I could, right? And you open the restaurant with the hubris that you know what's going on, and then life humbles you. It cuts you down to your knees day one. And you're just like, because like, you know, you got people that are just dead from, like, we did the baseboards in here. This was like a low budget operation.
Right.
And you got people that are savagely tapped out from the construction thing, and you got people that are like, oh man, this isn't for me. The pop-up was different.
Yeah.
And so like all of a sudden you haven't had turnover in 7 years. You're dealing with massive turnover, and you're like trying to get your tribe of people together, and you're trying to do the food you want to do. And like, man, there's no feeling in the world more helpless than like, I know I'm better than this, but I don't have the resources to get this done. And at that point you find out, like, what are you made of? How hard are you willing to go? Where is your line? And we just turned ourselves inside out, and it was so hard. Mm-hmm. Like, I broke my back, I've broken a collarbone, I've broken a wrist, I've competed at really high levels in athletics, and it was like all of those to the third power. It's just, it was like a lifetime of adversity in like 3 days.
Yeah.
And it just, man, it was so hard. And the good news is I'm still on really good terms with a lot of those people, the ones that stuck around, the ones that didn't.
Right.
But like, dude, opening a restaurant is savage. It is not for the faint of heart at all.
No, definitely not.
But like,
what were the major setbacks during that time? Because there always is one.
Staffing was brutal.
Yeah.
Like, we had less staff than we thought we needed, because I was like, oh, we won't be that busy, and then everyone rezos
comes.
were pinned.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this is rough. And then, you know, we had the gentleman I mentioned had to go back to India, and then my other sous chef got this excellent opportunity to go run his own place in Pennsylvania, and I wasn't going to tell him not to do that, but all of a sudden I'm down my entire management team.
Yeah.
And like, thank God, we picked up Alexei as a cook, which was hilarious. He was a really high level executive chef in Russia. Kind of, he and the current regime there were not exactly seeing eye to eye.
Right.
So he and his wife had to get out of town.
Yeah.
She's a baller tattoo artist here. And we picked him up as a CDP, which was hilarious. Like, during the late stage of the pop-up, we're like, hey, can you peel this kohlrabi? And we hand him a peeler. He hands us the peeler back and smashes through all of it perfectly with a paring knife. And we're like, cool, you want a job, man? And so, like, you know, those two guys were out like 2 or 3 weeks in. He stepped in, ran the whole thing. That's when we picked up Alina. They bonded over being able to speak Russian to each other. It was funny, like their first stage, they're like, I've been uncommonly lucky with extremely respectful cooks.
Yeah.
And they're both speaking English. And she looks at me and she's funny as hell. She's super savage. So is he. And she's like, hey, his English is terrible. Can we speak Russian? I'm like, yeah, I'm totally cool with that. She's like, oh, thank God. And so then they became like, you know, she's from Ukraine. He's Russian. They're fast friends. That shows you the power of a kitchen.
Right.
Like, we are here. And I mean, it probably also helped that he was, you know, had to get the heck out of Dodge.
Right.
But like, they're fast friends, and like, borders don't matter in a kitchen, man. All that matters is the task we need to get done, doing it at a high level, and having as much fun as we can do it, and supporting each other in that.
Right.
And so we started to build back up. But like Gabe, who I mentioned earlier, he comes in and helps us maybe 2 or 3 days a week, because at the time he had a contract to do pupusas for the Warriors in the Warriors Stadium.
Right.
So he's making cranking out 400 pupusas starting at like 7:30 in the morning, and then working 5 days a week here. So like, he's on the same schedule I am. Like, wake up, roll out of bed, crush, go home, become unconscious, repeat. And like, we wouldn't have made it through without him. Like, so it was wild. And like, for a while we were running the whole kitchen with like 4 people. It was Alina, Alexi, Gabe, and myself. That was wild.
How are you doing all the other things as a chef, like the invoicing,
Oh, well, we have a finance guy that I've had since the pop-up. Shout out Jared Feldman. He does Mr. Jews, Sorrel. If you need a good finance guy, Jared's the guy.
Okay.
But he made that part of my life much better. The rule was just like, whoever received the produce or the fish or whatever you're getting, take a photo of the invoice, text Jared, hope it's not blurry, and get back after it. So
okay, really?
Yeah, so he's like taking texts from multiple numbers,
right.
and he's like, hey, this one is completely wet. he's like, man, I don't know what you think I am. He's like, I'm a finance guy. I'm not like a. So at that point, we like take the invoice, we like clip it up over the stove where it'll dry out, and then send him another photo of it. And he's like, this one's equally horrible, but I think I got the program to recognize it. We're like, sick, great, moving on. Media was all on me at the time, and it was crazy. And so, you know, it was a lot of pressure, and like, sometimes I would go home and not be great. Like, it was in a rough place, you know, anxiety. You're like,
it's hard to post when you're having those feelings.
I mean, like, less than that, it's hard to human.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'd get home and I'd be like, man, I poured 15 years of my life into this. I own this thing outright. All my money's locked up in this. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And sometimes you spiral, and sometimes you come back to work and you're still spiraling, and you're like, I gotta button this up. I gotta be rock solid for the team, and I gotta get my stuff together and get through the day, right? Like, that is what I signed up for. My name is on the door. That is not negotiable. Like, these people are showing up, they're doing their best. I gotta give my best too.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, you take a couple deep breaths outside the door, and you're like, we don't need any more of that in our industry.
Yeah.
You know, like, we got the menu and we got the bear, and that we need that all to all be fiction from here on out, right? So you know, you go through that, and you get better and you get stronger, and every time you have an emergency, it's less emergent. You learn. You're like, oh yeah, you know, that person's had their hand on fire before. You know, hey Timmy, put that in the water. All right, great. Somebody get him the. You know, it's not that crazy, but it's like, it's you know, the dish machine doesn't work. Okay, cool. Well, call the number. We got them on speed dial. You know, or like, oh, these guests showed up and they have a reservation for a month from now. It's like, all right, well, we know the protocol. Pour them some sparkling wine, sit them down in the lounge, and let's find the hole in the night where they're going, because they're here and they showed up. And if there's any way we can do this, we do this. You know, you got to be accommodating. Somebody shows up and they're like, oh, by the way, I have a furious dairy allergy and can't have any dairy. And you're like, well, we sent 3 emails and like, but you know, we're in an open kitchen. Yeah. We're 3 feet away from the table they're sitting at. Like, you know, it's not like a normal situation. You can't go back into the kitchen and complain about them and whatever. Yeah. You just say yes and you make that happen.
Exactly.
And like, you make their day. They are super thankful in most cases. Sometimes they don't get it, and that's hard. But like, again, that's what I signed up for. Name's on the door. You got to get it done.
How do you deal with difficult customers?
That's an art. That's why I got a front of house team that I have. They're lovely at that, and sometimes you just gotta kind of eat it, and it's really frustrating. Now, the one place I will draw the line is if somebody's shitty to me, that's fine. If somebody's shitty to somebody that works for me, and it's kind of like, and I know this maybe isn't right, but the lower down the totem pole they are, the more pissed off I get. Like, if you treat my host poorly, like, you know, she's a restaurant person, but she's nowhere near as much a restaurant person as my sous chef. Like, that guy's a hardened warrior, right? He's just going to be like, cool, whatever, you're a terrible person. But like, that really hurts her, and that's not cool. Like, I'm not all right with that. Like, you know, if you give the snapping finger thing, ooh, no. We don't snap fingers here. Like, I don't come to your house and snap fingers. Don't come to mine and do that. And so at that point, you take a deep breath and you just like, step one, you don't reward that behavior. You know, but like at the same time, like sometimes people don't know. Sometimes they're trying to, they do the hand thing. They're trying to get somebody's attention, and you know, we want to be as warming and welcoming as possible. So sometimes you realize they just don't know any better. They don't mean anything by it. Now, you know, sometimes when they do mean something by it, that's harder. We've never thrown anyone out of here. We had one serious conversation once where I was like, look, you're gonna have to be better than that. And we're happy to, we're gonna go up from here, and this is gonna be the best meal you've ever had and the best experience you've ever had, and we're gonna reset. All of us are gonna reset. And they were kind of shocked that I addressed it that way, and they were cool from then on out. And we got a 5-star review out of it on Yelp. They're like, you know, this place, like, things weren't going well, and they righted the ship, and it's cool, and everybody should go.
Yeah.
So you got to look at those as opportunities. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
Are you looking at the reviews a lot?
So I was in my head about that stuff for a while. Now I have the management team look at it, and I'm really lucky. Lately, they're like, hey, we got another 5-star one. They like the food. They like the wine. Hey, we got another 5-star one. They think this person was really funny at the table. You know, and occasionally you get a 1-star one, and they're like, hey, they said you're ugly and your food sucks. And I'm like, well, I mean, sorry. Like, I got bad news for them. That's the best I had on the day. I left it all on the field. So if they don't like it, like, they probably shouldn't come back, because, man, I sold out for that one.
Yeah.
You know, like.
How many seats you got in here?
So the most we've ever done is 45 in a night. Mm-hmm. We've done a seating of 26, and that's pumping. Because the thing is, you got to make it nice. You got to drop simultaneously. You got to have the open hand service. You got to give the customer the time. Like, we're doing a lot of weird things. You know, we got liquid nitrogen going. We have fish tiled in scales of vegetables. We do a lot of tableside shenanigans. Yeah. So if you do that and just run away, they're really confused. But if you do that and explain it, it really adds. We're like, and this is why we did this, and this is the farm it came from, and this is what we were thinking here. And people really connect with that, because fine dining, like, yeah, truffles are cool. So is caviar. Like, I like a lot of those things as well. But, like, what people really want is they want to feel seen. They want to feel cared about. They want to feel taken care of. It needs to be warm and welcoming. There are some fine dining establishments where you walk in and they're like, hi, we're better than you. Here's your wine. And you're just like, that's not fun. They're like, for the rest of the night, we'll continue to be better than you. Here's your seat. Please sit down. We'll begrudgingly serve you for the duration of the night.
Right.
And you're just like, what did I just pay a lot of money for?
Right.
And, like, the other thing is we try to kind of read the room. So, like, there's a certain number of touches to a table that makes sense. Like, yeah, we want to refill your water, but if you're out on a date with someone you really care about, or you're spending time with somebody you really love, or even crazier, we had someone come in who was really sick, and they're like, this is going to be my last meal out, probably in my life with my friends. Like, man, that's some pressure, right? So, like, you don't want to, like, steps of service are important, but at that point in time, like, they're connecting with these people that are so important to them. Like, maybe you don't dive in and refill the water.
Yeah.
Like, you come from a place of openness, and you come from a place of realizing that you might not be the reason they're here.
Yeah.
As cool as you think you are, there are cooler things. And if it's, their spouse or their girlfriend or their best friend from college or whoever, or their grandma at their graduation dinner, that person is way more important than you are. And the sooner you realize that, the better your restaurant's going to be. Like, you're there to do a cool thing while they're having a really cool conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cure cancer, but if I can give the person that is going to cure some form of cancer a 2.5-hour break, that's the best thing I can do with the rest of my life. Like, that's a pretty rad thing to do, right? Everybody needs a little vacation. If it's like some really heavy thing that they do, or some, like, I'll never forget, this couple came in and they were having a bad time, and they were a little snippy with us at first, and then as the evening went on, they warmed up, and then at the end of the evening, they're like, "Oh man, we just lost a really close friend, and sorry about the beginning of this, and this has been really beautiful, and thank you so much." And like, man, I can hang my hat on that. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be here for. And I'd like all the people that come out of this restaurant and this system of the way we do things to be able to do that as well. The culture here is more important than anything else that we can do. There are a lot of people that cook amazing food. Like, get on Instagram and scroll for 30 seconds, and you're going to find somebody.
You'll find something.
Like, I feel like we're pretty high level, but there are people that are going to wipe the floor with us.
Yeah.
And at the top level, it's definitely a resource game, and I like being the little engine that could. But like, freaks exist.
Yeah.
And that's awesome to see, and I love that exists. But I feel like for this profession to continue forward, we have got to really check our egos. We've got to figure out what it is we want to do. We have to figure out how to pay people enough to live, and we have got to figure out how to make it a sustainable thing where you can have a family and have a life outside of the place. But you also have to figure out how you can still work like a savage in the old schoolist way while you're here. And so that's what I'm working on right now. That's the most important part of this project, is figuring out how we can have that environment. And
have both.
Yeah, when I started out, I was way too soft. And we had to say goodbye to some people that kind of quiet quit on us. And that sucks, man. Like, I've had to let a couple people go, and that's not fun. And I was talking to Francis, our wine director / GM. Everybody here's got multiple hats. I was like, "Hey, man, if I ever do that and I don't look torn up afterwards, I want you to quit, because I'm a monster."
Yeah.
And it's hard. And like, sometimes we've had to let people go, and I have helped them find another job somewhere else, and they're really excelling. And that's great. Like I said, not everything fits. I mean, I got bounced out of La Toque.
Yeah.
I'm pretty all right at cooking now, but at the time I wasn't what they needed.
Have you gotten an honorary doctorate from them yet?
Actually, so I was running a service back in the day at Bird Dog.
Yeah.
And again, there was a guy who was running the kitchen there, and I didn't feel the respect thing, and I do really poorly with that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I definitely gave disrespect back. I may have hit him with "You'll never be my real dad," or like something like that.
Snarky shit.
Yeah.
Hey,
but
whatever.
like, like the writing was on the wall. I knew I was done. I was like, all right, well, whatever, man. And he didn't see who I was, and he was at the bar at Bird Dog, and he ate 3 of my items off the menu, and he taps me on the shoulder, and I haven't turned around yet, and he's like, that was 3 really, really exceptional courses. And I turned around, I'm like, thanks. And he was like, he went totally white. It was so good. I was like, hey man, no hard feelings. Like, I'd have done it too.
Right.
And he was just like, I was like, yeah, have a good one. That's all you can do, right? Like, I need
hate is so real in this industry. I mean, when you're going neck and neck, and people are your competition, it gets pretty spicy.
Right,
sometimes.
but like, if you have a little bit of accountability, you can look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I wasn't good enough today.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I was not
Always.
there, and like, that hurts. But that also, like, if you can, a little bit of accountability and a little bit of motivation will do an incredible thing for you. And so that's kind of what I want to do here. That's the thing. And like everybody in that kitchen and the front of house team too, everybody has a really high level of personal accountability. And that's super cool. And you know, there's not a whole lot of like enforcing standards, because if there's 4 people working in the kitchen and you're the 5th and everybody else is crushing it, and you're drawn on the wall with crayons, you're getting called. They don't have to call you out. You call yourself out. You're like, man, this is not great.
Right.
Like my stuff doesn't look like, one of these things is not like the others.
Right.
And nobody wants that feeling.
No.
But the difference between here and somewhere else is we're willing to do everything we can within reason to bring that person along. Like I said earlier, we function like pack animals. You know, we are a team. If table 11 gets 11 courses and whatever the salad course is garbage, they're not like, oh, whoever was on Garmo is having a rough night. They're like, this is an inconsistent restaurant. I'm not coming back.
Right.
Like that's the thing. So like, it doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter why. You got to put the things in place and do the stuff. And like, we taste everything every day. And I got to tell you, like a couple months into the menu, I'm not super excited about doing it. And neither is the rest of the team. But that's the other thing. We have everyone in the kitchen taste every puree. And when we cure fish, we slice a small piece and cook it and taste that for salt. And we're doing all these things, and everyone does it. It's not this old school, like, you know, I came down from the mountain with the 10 commandments and I know everything. Like,
right.
If there's anybody in this building who has more stress on them than anyone else, it's me. And that stuff messes with your palate sometimes. I like to think I'm still pretty dialed most of the time, but like I'm surrounded by a team of people that are really good. So we'll all taste things. I will never tell people what I think until I've heard everybody else's feedback. And I'd say 90% of the time, I'm in total agreement with everything. But my theory is you can't get something past 5 people that actually care about it. And the other thing is you have people that run salty, people that run acidic, people that run sweet. And so it gives us a broader point of view for how we want to season things, right? So because at the end of the day, we're not cooking for me. We're cooking for whoever the customer is. And the customer is going to come from all kinds of different socioeconomic backgrounds and have grown up in different places and eaten different foods from different ethnic backgrounds. And those are the things that are important. That's what defines what they like. You know, like if somebody comes here from Siberia, they're not going to have any childhood memories of carrot cake, right? But like, but like maybe borscht or I'm woefully, Alexi, I'm sorry. I'm woefully under knowledgeable about Russian food. When you have Anna on, she can tell you all about the Slavic foods.
Definitely.
She is the queen of Slavic foods.
Anna's gonna kill it.
Yeah, she is.
That's this Friday.
Yeah, that's Friday, folks. Tune in. But yeah, she's a good friend. Like I said, we keep a small circle, and she's a good friend of the restaurant and really cool. But anyhow, so you know, maybe not everybody has that taste memory. So you got to come at it from a way of like seasoning things perfectly, and hot stuff has to be hot, cold stuff has to be cold, and it takes a village to get that done. And any one person that tells you, "Oh, I stand in the pass and I catch everything," they're lying to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a team of people with a high level of accountability, and it's super cool coming to work every day because I get to show up, work my tail off, and drive a Ferrari every night.
Right.
It's rad. You know, I really like what I do. It's so much fun. And if you don't like what you do when you're in a kitchen, you should definitely get out like 4 years ago.
Get the fuck out.
It's not a fun time.
No.
But yeah, it's been been a super cool process. And I'm not gonna lie, there are still some days that you're just like, oh, you're like, man, I don't know how we got here.
Yeah. If you got everything you want, would you open more restaurants?
I don't know. I think I might just take this one as far as it could get because I don't have a whole lot of interest in a Mike burger.
Right.
I mean, like, I have so much fun doing this. I mean, it's like
Anomaly NY.
There you go, Chef.
Yeah. I mean,
By Coastal.
oh boy. I don't know, man.
I'm calling it now.
I like
right.
I like the fact that I know how things are going. I like being hands-on. I like seeing the product. Nobody is going to care about this as much as me, and if they do, they have a traumatic brain injury.
Right,
because
right.
I care about this way too much. But I don't know. It's really a thing that I love to do. It's so much fun. Like I still like to cook on the line. I try to not do that too often. Because you get the young fast guys and they're like, who is this guy? And
definitely.
What is he doing
just
here?
Like
they're like, Grandpa, get out the way.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's fun. It's a thing that's really meaningful. And it's cool to see, not just the kitchen side. Like the wine program here is doing really cool things.
Yeah.
And I am close to sober. I mean, I'll drink wine every now and then. It's like I'm in the really rough position that the only wines I drink are like legendary. The wine team will be like, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, like they're like, we have this 1961 Chateau Margaux, and there's just a little bit left. Do you want to try it? I was like, I'm not gonna eat it as much as some people, but hell yeah, I want to try it.
Yeah, damn right.
And so I'm starting to wine more, but like, I have all these people, and they have all these connections, and we have a lot of 1-off, 2-off, 3-off bottles.
Yeah.
Where we're picking them up from wine auctions or whatever. Francis is super aggressive in that space. It's really, really cool. And then Marcus has a lot of connections in the Champagne region. So there he formed the dynamic duo of like a really cool wine program. And then it's people come to this tiny little restaurant and they're like, wow, you have a disproportionately strong wine program. And I'm like, yeah, it was purely an accident, but I'm very, very lucky to have had that happen. And Francis knows he's got carte blanche. Like he can do whatever he wants. Like if he wants to be like, I want to build a half bottle program for during the week, I'll be like, cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just go hard at it.
Yeah,
just as long as it's cool. That's all I care about,
Right.
And he and Marcus also put a ton of effort into the pairing, which is super cool. Like we taste things and taste things and taste things and taste things, and he'll be like, "Here's what I think. What do you think, Marcus?" And Marcus will give some opinion, and they'll go back and forth. And there's a lot of it's only two people, but there's a lot of knowledge between those two minds, and that's a super cool thing too, because like this is another part of getting over your ego, chefs. Not everybody is there for the food. There are some people that are kind of come into your restaurant, and the food is the background music for the wine they're going to drink. Mm-hmm. And the sooner you can get over that, the more successful you're going to be. And so, like, there are some nights where people come in and they're like, yeah, the food was made of food, but the wine. And, like, and I'm here for that, too.
Yeah.
Because, you're trying to score points in the decor box, the service box, the wine box, the food box, and then there's the extra stuff box,
Like you said, if your garde manger cook loses, then you also have to celebrate your wins.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like goes hand in hand, 50-50.
Yeah, but Alina never loses because she's a savage.
I know, literally, she will kill me.
Yeah.
I saw her. She will kill me.
But like, you have the, so, sometimes people come in and the thing they're really focused on is wine, and they're like, yeah, the food is really, really good too. But what I really liked was the fact that you had this weird Rioja from the 70s.
Yeah.
Like, where did you get that? And Francis will be like, well, let me tell you, once upon a time.
Right.
And sometimes, and sometimes that when we're picking up food for tables with certain older, more interesting, quirkier, more esoteric, more highly allocated wines, we have to accommodate that as well.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, this is a little frustrating, but like, you see how much that means to the guest, and if we're as good as we think we are, then we need to be able to accommodate that as well, right? That's kind of our stance on dietary restrictions. People are like, oh, I can't do this, or this. Can you take me?
No fucking problem.
Yeah, I was like, guess what? Rent comes due at the end of every month, and
Exactly.
vegan money spends. So we got one of those as well. And if we're as good as we say we are, then we should be able to create an experience across the board for anybody.
Right.
Now, let's temper that with we need some time. Like if you roll in,
Don't be rolling in demanding shit, bro.
yeah, if you roll
You ain't
in
gonna
and,
get it.
and tonight you're just like, I'm not feeling dairy tonight. Like that's rough. We can't do that.
Right. Preferences.
Actually, sometimes we can.
Allergies will do. Preferences, no,
I mean,
no.
We even do that sometimes.
But I'm saying like
Yeah.
the quick, fast preferences.
yeah,
like,
yeah. Like I'm not really feeling.
I don't want to fart tonight. You know what I mean? Like, fuck you. You know, fart a little bit. Be all right. Release, chef.
Yeah, no comment. No. But like, you know, it's you want to come at it from the most hospitable place you can. It's the hospitality business. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
And I get like, you know, if you're a Michelin 3-star and you have a 47-course meal and you don't want to, you know, repeat any ingredients, and that's your restaurant's mission statement, and you have I get it. But within our framework, I feel like we can do a good job with most of these things with, you know, 72 hours notice or whatever. And like I said, the team they're motivated, man. And a lot of the funny thing is a good bit of the next menu is informed by stuff we have to do to get around to dietary restrictions in the current menu. So we're like, well, what do we do? Well,
Happy accidents.
yeah, well, I mean, at this point now, we're planning. I'm like, all right, well, what's about to come in season that we can throw in front of these people?
Right.
And, you know, it's like, all right, well, we're going to do this weird thing with Celtus, and then we're going to grill it, and then we're going to hollow it out
Yeah.
and fill it with the puree of whatever.
Are you going to the farmer's market every
Yeah.
day and shit?
No, not every day. So we work a lot with, we use almost exclusively farmers market produce, but I hit the Clement Street Farmers Market on Sundays.
Right.
And then our sous chef, Manny, God bless him.
Yeah, God bless him.
Hits the Saturday market for me because I live 2 blocks away from here, and I am a lot better cook than I am shopper. So I get in, you know, Saturday morning, I'm processing fish, curing things, knocking out projects, and he's gracious enough to go take care of it for us there. And then we get a lot of deliveries from purveyors. They'll have a minimum, and we'll figure out, okay, like how can we use that minimum? And so we get a lot of produce deliveries throughout the week. You know, Dirty Girl, Star Route. God, I'm doing some farmers wrong because I'm forgetting names.
That's all good.
But we
Full
get
belly, front porch.
yeah, those
The usual suspects,
yeah,
baby.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Yeah, California.
K&J.
Yeah.
There we go. Sometimes Frog Hollow,
Ah.
depending. But like anyhow, you know, a lot of those people, they realize we're small. They realize we don't necessarily have the resources to send somebody around in a car, and they're
Yeah.
like, we can do Thursdays. And I'm like, cool. We better get our stuff together well enough that we can take a delivery of this every Thursday and know how much we need. And so that's a part of running a small restaurant too. It's you know, I think in a lot of ways it's really good, even if you don't want to run a small restaurant on your own. Let's say you want a bigger one. It teaches you how to be really on top of what you're doing. Because if we don't, it's not like we have like 3 guys standing in the back peeling potatoes and we can be like, here, make us this menu.
Right.
It's like whoever's expoing is like, oh boy. All right, guys. So here this comes, and one of us is while we're cooking the menu, and you know the cooks run a lot of the food here. So while we're cooking the menu and running the food, are having to create whatever it is that just came in.
Yeah.
And we've done that once or twice and realized exactly how painful that is, and it's a lot less painful to have 1 or 2 things in pocket. So we tend to prep for surprises now. And that proactivity has been
Contingency plans.
Yeah, oh boy.
You gotta have it, baby.
Yeah, so, you know, somebody will be like, oh, people can't eat this. And we're like, cool, click, done. It's like, oh, well, we braised off all these beets, or we roasted these celery root overnight for 12 hours at 300 degrees, and now they're ready to be processed in this way, and we'll finish this on the grill, or we'll sear this, or whatever it is we're going to do with it. Or like, oh, we have these fermented things hanging out. Let's, we need a sauce, though. Okay, ram them through a juicer. Okay, that's a 6-second thing. Whereas or like, you know, or we can finish the plate with it or whatever. But, like, we have things, and we're prepared for this stuff. So that's a really valuable thing for us as well. You're just, again, it's accountability, man. We're preparing to try and meet whatever challenge the day brings us, and that's it's working out right now.
Damn right. How'd you get your front of the house training? Was that formal, or were you just doing the pop up?
Oh, I was the king of the backhand and the catapult plate.
Yeah.
For like the first year of the
pop up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thankfully, so I had a partner in the early part of the pop up.
Yeah.
Bought him out eventually. He's doing great things now. He is the most patient man in food because he dealt with my dumb ass running stuff to the table over and over and over again in a way that was just not great. And so now I'm really comfortable in a dining room. Like, everyone here can carry 3 plates, although we don't anymore because we're shooting for a more elegant style of service. So we've incorporated trays.
Trays is the way to go, baby.
Yeah, like if you can take a sauce and 2 things to a table, you can serve both those people and elegantly sauce a thing and then pack up and bail.
Yeah.
And
The packing up part of it is key.
Yeah.
Because you're just like,
you can't do the thing where you're like, and this is this, and we're done, and then just like
run
180 and bail.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they'll be like, oh, thank you, or oh, I have a question about this, and if they're asking your back that is 10 feet away a question, you failed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of another thing. The move in the kitchen, we're moving as quickly as we can, and then in the dining room, you gotta slow down and have a little swagger. And tasting everything before service, that gives you a lot more swagger than if you're wondering if the sauce is on. If you know the sauce is on, you can go to that table and be like, and this is this, and it's real damn good. But if you didn't, let's say we're behind and we're tasting things right as we pick them up, and we're like, oh no, it needs a little salt, and it's something that we do a lot of modernist things here. So you're dispensing something out of an ISI into a pot and seasoning it. That's not good.
Right.
That night is gonna hurt. And then you're like, okay, what we'll do is we'll just ungas the thing, throw salt in there, shake it around, taste it with this. No, you should have had that done at 4:45.
Right.
And so that's a thing that we strive to do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that in the existence of this restaurant, we weren't dispensing stuff into pots and seasoning it with salt on the night once or twice.
Yeah, of course.
But you learn from that, and if you don't, you don't deserve to be successful. So, but yeah, that's a lot of the front of house stuff. Like when I was a sous chef, they're like, cook fast, cook hard, cook perfect, expo well. That's all that matters. And then when you go into the dining room, take your towels and apron off, or we're gonna yell at you.
Yeah, literally.
That was my front of house training. They're like, if you go into the dining room with a towel on, we're gonna lose it.
Yeah.
Here, we're cool with that as long as it's one towel, it's neatly folded, and it's not destroyed. But you shouldn't have a destroyed towel anyway. You should just cook with finesse.
Yeah.
What's
your thing on that? Do you just give your cooks how many towels they need for the day?
Yeah, but here's the thing. They're all, again, high level of accountability, crushers. They're pushing themselves they realize towels cost money. This is a small business.
Yeah.
If they can use less towels, they do. But if they need a towel, they're empowered to grab that towel. Because we want to be, you saw how close the kitchen is to the table you were sitting at.
Yeah.
If I sneeze, you're God blessing me.
Right.
And that's another thing. In an open kitchen, we have banes with, I don't know if you noticed tonight, the short banes are clean spoons, the tall banes are dirty spoons.
Okay.
You never see us reuse.
Right.
That's super performative. Also, we went to that system 2.5 years ago. Nobody tastes out of a thing, and even if it's a bane with some solution in it, we don't do that. You use a spoon, you taste, you discard, and when we went to that halfway through the pop-up, all of a sudden people are getting sick a lot less.
Right.
Well, not the customers. The customers are never getting sick. Jesus. Maybe we cut that one out.
That's all good, bro.
But what I'm saying is and that was back in the day pre-COVID where people were working with colds and working sick and whatever. And anybody who's been in this industry, I worked a shift at Spruce after I got hit by a car on my bike.
What the fuck, chef?
Yeah. You can ask. Oh,
that's Spruce. They're fucking corporate. They could have held you down, bro.
my name was on the schedule, man. If my name is on the schedule.
Did you tell him you got hit by a bike? By a car?
Yeah. Well, I did when I got there. They to their credit, they took care of me. They bandaged me up. We plastic wrapped my arm, and I went to work.
Off to the races.
Yeah. Shout out Nicole Abundo. That was another one of the savages when I was in the kitchen there. She was on pastry. She was at Divergio for a little while. She was at La Folie. Now she's being a mom and crushing that too. Talk to her every now and then. She is a savage. She was at Jean-Georges. She actually went into labor on the line at JG.
Wow.
Yeah, she is not for the faint of heart.
That's legendary.
Yeah, so like that's the thing. You surround yourself with these people, and you're like, my tummy hurts. Come on, man. Like, get over it.
Right.
Like, and that's like the person you want to be for your people, right? You want to go out there and you want to do the thing. So I showed up that day and I was like, I'm gonna work until I can't stand anymore, or you send me home.
Yeah.
So last pick finishes. Our executive sous chef rolls over to me. He's laughing at me and he's like, "Chef, get the hell out of here."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Man, you're like 3 hours late." And he's like, "Nah, you're good. Don't worry about it. Like, thanks so much. Whatever, you know." And that's kind of the way that's how you build camaraderie in this business. Like, and I'm not advocating that. Please, for the love of God, cooks out there, if you get hit by a car, stay the hell at home. But like, you know, it's that's.
But if you want to go to work, please do. You know, I'm sorry, man. Like at some point, I don't want to let go of the toughness of being a fucking cook.
Yeah, that's
and I'm not saying that every kitchen has to be that way. But it's okay if there's one or two.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
That's there's a saying. I grew up in Georgia, and it's if you're gonna be dumb, you got to be tough.
Right.
And I'm sometimes very tough, because you kind of got to do what you got to do. And again, it goes back to accountability. People are gonna be like, "Man, I'm sick of this accountability podcast." But like, your name's on the schedule, you show up. And that's I'm old school, and that's how I was raised. That's how I came up.
Oh yeah, baby.
And that's what I try to do. And I don't advocate it, but if somebody does it, I tip my cap to them. I respect them.
Right.
Like that's pretty savage. Like,
damn right.
You know, and that being said, you know, if you got some really awful stuff going on in your personal life, taking a day every now and then, I understand that too.
Yeah.
You know, we're here for the new world. We're here for the life.
Do collabs with? In particular.
So, that's kind of a funny thing. So Stefan's on later, right?
Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah, I did a thing with him like a year and a half ago when some people cared about him and definitely no one cared about me.
Right.
And that was super fun. They had me up to Petaluma. I learned a lot about doing an event with another chef. They were super welcoming. It was so much fun. A couple of my friends that live in the Valley got to come out. What a blast. And that's a thing that I would be open to in the future. But right now we're trying to make sure we keep our own house in order. We got this, you said it. We got the Michelin cycle right now. And I'm not saying we're getting it or we're not or whatever. But what I'm saying is we're pushing hard to be the best we can be. And until I feel like we're at a place where we have extra resources or we're an attractive companion for something like that, I'm not going to beg people to collaborate with us. Like, I get that. And it's like, that's a weird world. It's got to fit. And I know there's a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah.
But I want to have a high level of honesty when I do that.
Yeah.
Like, do these two things fit? Like, maybe it's really cool if our stuff is kind of wacky and new, and we collaborated with someone that was super old school. Mm-hmm. You know, it'd be like the throwback jerseys in the NBA, and we go every other course or whatever. Who
Shirts
knows?
And skins.
Yeah. There you go. But like, there are things like that are very, very interesting, and those are open to us. But right now, I want to get to a place where I feel like we're crushing. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm willing to do. We did Meals on Wheels, and that was super cool. But that took a lot out of our staff, because that was actually the second time ever that in 7 years that this restaurant's been open and I wasn't here. A good buddy of mine, Parker, he's kind of a mentor to Manny, who's our sous chef.
Yeah.
He's doing his own pop-ups. Parker Brown, look him up. But he stepped in and ran the kitchen for me for 2 days. Not that Manny wasn't capable, but like Parker's a good expo, and Manny, that's another thing. You gotta have the humility to know, like sometimes, like, I don't know, up until till Zach came back to us a month ago from culinary school, I was on pastry. Gabe was expoing, and Gabe expos a lot. It's like this ego thing is a silly thing in kitchens. It's like just because you're the guy with the pen doesn't mean you know what's going on. But anyhow, Parker does know what's going on, and he's really good at that, and that's a gift he has. And I trust his standards a lot, and he stood in for me for 2 days, and that was awesome. I got to go to my best friend's wedding in D.C., be in the wedding, and then I red-eyed back here, early flighted back here for Meals on Wheels. And that's another funny story about doing what I said I was going to do. So
Meals on Wheels, baby.
Yeah, wedding gets done at like 12:30 p.m. The bride is like, I got to get to a hotel close to the airport. The bride's like, yo, we want ramen. She's like, you're a chef. Can you do ramen? And I was like, the bride just made a request on the wedding night. So hell yeah.
You went out and made ramen?
Yeah, so I made ramen for the whole, it was just like Shin ramen. I'm like reading the packet here, but they're like, make it, so I like Instacarted some scallions and I got some bacon and like, it was the white guyest ramen ever.
Right.
And it was a wedding that was like 50% country fried and 50% Chinese, so it was hilarious that we have, we got this like reheatable bacon ramen thing going on, but whatever, it was the vibe and everybody liked it and it was fun. But I look up and I'm like, holy moly, it's 2:30 and I got like an hour and a half drive and then I got a 7:15 flight. So I get to the hotel at like 4:30 and I'm going to take a 30-minute nap. So I missed that flight. I woke up at 9:30 with that flight halfway across the country in a red-hot panic, looking around. Luckily, flight was cancelable. That was on Delta. Book a flight on United. It lands at 3:15. Meals on Wheels starts at 4. Land at 3:15. Run through the airport. They made like a little announcement on the plane so I could run up the aisle. Had somebody grabbed my bag for me and held it for me till the next day. I get to Meals on Wheels at 4:02, in the whites at 4:03, doing stuff at 4:04. Because I said I was going to be there, and I had to be there. And it was the thing I said I was going to do, and if I'm not who I say I am, then who am I? So we did that. That was a bunch of fun. Got to catch up with a lot of friends. That's a great event. But, like, that took a lot out of the team to do a thing on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because we're tiny. There's 5 to 6 of us.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, and that's why I didn't sign us up for the main thing. We just did an entree. So the egg that you had tonight, we sold about 500 of those things. And so, on top of whatever these guys are doing for the week, they're also making like 18 quarts of potato foam and a bunch of egg yolk jam and whatever, and then making a checklist of stuff they got to take there. And it's
shit was delicious, though.
Yeah, thanks. That's
delicious.
That's kind of another funny story. Like when I started the pop-ups, I was like, I need an egg dish. Everybody's got an egg dish, but like I want my egg dish to not really be an egg, and I want it to kind of I want it to get some traction, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, an old Robuchon technique. It's so old people forgot it, potato foam. But we came up with a really smoky dashi that we whip into it, hit a little puffed rice at the bottom, egg yolk jam, wham bam. People like that thing way more than it deserves to be liked, but I'm not going to take it off.
Don't do it.
We took it off for
Don't
one seating of one pop-up, and we had two guests that were really, really upset that it was off, and they demanded to sit through to the next seating where they said I should serve it. So it was another one of those things where I was like, they had come to a couple of the pop-ups, and I was like, all right, fine. So in between courses, we whip up this egg thing. So I think like 12 people in the history of Anomaly haven't had the egg snack.
Really?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's been a thing that's been on, and I think we're going to ride with it. We got the cute
oysters and pearls.
Yeah, maybe.
Your Opus 1.
Oh, God. But like, it's one of those things where you're just like, people like it, and I think...
I love it. It's double starch, potatoes and rice.
I think a lot of It's a veritable pasta sandwich.
Yeah, basically.
But I think
it's like it's stoner food at its finest. Like
you're not wrong.
You know.
But like, you know, you take what are two things people love about restaurants? A new menu and classics that they can come back to. So we try to balance a new menu with things you can come back to and enjoy. And that's the one thing that never leaves. And it's funny the way people's eyes light up. I mean, we estimated the other day we've served probably more than 10,000 of that thing. And same recipe, nothing tweaked, whatever, and everybody just loves it. And it's the silliest thing ever. But man, at the end of the day, I'm trying to make people happy, and that works. So cool, great. Check that box. We got 10 more courses we better crush out. Otherwise, they're going to be like, the egg was good, but the rest of it was garbage. That goes back to consistency and having a team around you that's good and showing up and working hard and doing all those things. So that's, again, I'm sure at this point people are fast forwarding because they're sick of hearing me say that, but I'm going to say it until
keep saying it, man. Fuck them.
I'm going to say it until I fall
Sucio
over
Talked,
dead,
baby.
or we get done what we want to get done here, you know. And I don't even really know what that is. I just know, like right now, I come in, I'm really excited to be here. We're doing things that I'm excited about, and I want to push that further. I want to see where that goes. Mm-hmm. You know, honestly, making it this far wasn't even on my bingo card. I assumed that, I did the first pop-up, no one showed up. I did the second pop-up, it was kind of like halfway attended, and I was like, and then 3 months I'll be out of business. And it kind of went the other way, and I didn't really expect that. And man, like the high from realizing like, oh wow, this thing can be successful is a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Like you'll do some wacky stuff to be successful, and you're like, man, this is cool, and people like it, and I get to like, you know, the first time you're hiring people, you just kind of start hiring. Like when we opened, you kind of, and no disrespect to the opening team, I love them all, and we're all still on a really good, good circumstances and a good basis. But like, I lucked into them being good.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't taking my time at all. I was just like, oh my God, hire this person, this person, this person. Turns out, I got a good team, probably better than I deserved at the time, to be real honest. You know. It's cool because after you build a community, you can take time to really, you know, do things more thoughtfully. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of like every month you go down this road, you get new challenges, but rising to those gets a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And that's been a really interesting, fun thing. And not having anyone tell me what I have to do with the concept has been good too.
Yeah. You own your masters, bro.
Yeah.
Nobody tell you what to do now.
Yeah, except like when the fridge or the freezer is on the fritz, you can't just like look at some people and ask for some more money.
Right.
It's YouTube University.
It's ass out, baby.
Yeah, it's a real interesting moment. Then, luckily, you know, we have a guy in Zach who's pretty handy. He was in the Air Force, and he's pretty mechanically inclined, and so is Manny. I'm garbage at that, but if we ever have to do any landscaping or chop wood, I got us covered.
There you go. You need a little bit more money? OnlyFans? Mike Lanham has an OnlyFans, okay? Everybody check that out.
Please, no.
You're going to have to start one, bro. Man, the meal tonight. Thank you so much. That fucking was delicious. I haven't had a true fine dining experience in a very long time.
Well, I'm glad we could do that for you.
Front row seat looking at the kitchen, like,
yeah.
Damn. That was everything.
Thanks. Well, I want you doing this because I think it's this is a ballsy thing to undertake too. I'm sure like the first one of these you did was probably pretty intimidating.
Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah, and you look back on it now and you're like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Like
the thing that sucks too is, you know, you'll be really good at something for a long time or like have a streak and then something happens where it's just like rookie mistake. And then that's like a 3 days of darkness.
Yeah, yeah, and it's out there for the whole world to see.
Literally.
Like if you wanna really see where we've come from, scroll back in our Instagram. I left the first posts from 2018 up where we're like the only good lighting in the house where we're cooking this stuff is on top of the fridge. So we're like standing on the counter, shooting bad iPhone photos on the top of the fridge, and then trying to manipulate them to where they're acceptable. man, we have come a long way since there.
For sure.
But like, you know, it's a thing, right? It's a process. And realizing where you are and where you want to go is a skill that you don't have when you start.
Damn right.
Like, I'll never forget the first entree we served was poached halibut, and it was so overwrought and horrible. I blanched these scallion tops, split them with a knife, and wrapped the fish in them, and they were great on the test, but I tested one. And we go to pick them up day of, and we've got like 15 or 20 of these going. And we got scallions falling off the things like you wouldn't believe. That I've never sauced a protein with more sauce in my life. Like the intersection of sauce and shame, just was, it was rough.
Just freaking the fuck out. Like,
Yeah.
I got to give people their money back.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work. I'm finished.
And people loved it. They're like, I love the way the scallions are unwrapped under the fish. And you're like, I don't. Man, that like, oof.
You don't have to tell them that, chef.
Yeah, I know. We definitely
Play the part.
And then we had a day where the pan de queso didn't rise, and I was like, these are our tapioca flour cheese flatbreads.
Right,
like early days,
right.
the pop up were rough, man.
Yeah.
And there was one day where we burned them, and we had to serve them like in between the final protein and dessert, and we're like, and this is your intermezzo cheese bread. And they're like, what? We're like, I think we sold it as the cheese course and gave everybody like a small like pour of wine, because like the thing is, you've been a sous chef, and so you know how to like fight your way through.
Yeah.
But you don't know how to you don't know how to like you don't know how to run your own business. Like, you've run someone else's
Definitely
business, but like all the things you accrue when you open, it's like the place I popped up at, they always had Wi-Fi. So when I open my own, it comes with Wi-Fi. No, it doesn't. and so
Paying the light bill, the bill.
Yeah. So like, there's this laundry list of stuff that was at all these venues you popped up at, right? But like, and you only have to do it once.
How much is Toast gouging you for? Those fucking bastards. Like, all those people, like, they're all in on it, bro.
I try to put that out of my mind.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing is, if we didn't have that interface, we'd be in a pretty rough spot.
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
So like, I mean, kudos to them for the idea. Whoever came up with Toast, hats off to you, because you're smarter than I am, so I got to be tough.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's one of those things. Like, you got Toast, you got Talk. Talk and Toast have to talk to each other. We started out with Square, which doesn't talk to Talk. So we're like creating buttons for each individual wine we sell when we sell it. So like, you know, and then we have all these dead wine SKUs in there that
Who's going to go in there and take them out?
St. Francis of Anomaly did. Poor guy. And so he was like, man, we got to get Toast. So when we finally, you know, we had a couple good weeks, it's like, all right, now we can afford Toast.
Right.
And that's another thing. You know, like, you set goals and you're like, all right, we met this goal. Now we can get a little bit more legitimate. Now we can get the fans in the dish area that blow the hot air out. So on hot days, the customers aren't wondering if it's like a sauna or whatever. but like, you start, you know, it's bootstrapped. And so like, that process has been cool too. But yeah, like, you set up Wi-Fi, and then you set up electric, and then you set up water, and then you set up, you know, Toast. But then one of your credit cards, you know, goes past the expiration, and they send you a new credit card in the mail. But you get to reset up all those things that were on that credit card, because now it's expired. So but wait, you forgot the water bill password. So like, you learn to write things down. You learn to work smarter, not harder, real quick. But like, in a team like this, I can't be like, director of ops, figure my stuff out. Like, I'm the director of ops.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the director of paying the water bill. So, and like our dish guy is awesome. Gustavo's is killer.
Yeah.
But like, I'm also the director of making sure that the garbage is the right spot on the curb. And like, you know, now I've outsourced that to people like Manny or whatever. But like, when this started, man, I took the trash out and locked the doors, and I was here first and here last, and that's what you got to do, and that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But it was a cool experience, and I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I'm not doing all of it anymore. So, you know, you learn, and it's kind of how it goes.
Hell yeah, baby. I think we leave it right there.
Cool. Well,
Leave it right there.
thanks so much. This has been great. Now you're driving all the way out from Oakland.
Yeah, dude, it ain't that far. Anomaly SF. What is the address here?
2600 Sutter, anomaly_SF on Instagram. We have quite an Instagram presence because that's kind of how we got through the pop-ups because nobody else cared. So anyhow, and this has been awesome.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks a lot. You being so honest and telling your story. Sucio Talk podcast. This episode will be out soon. Come check this out. This is honestly one of the best tasting menus in San Francisco. Talk. Boom. That's it, baby. We did it.
That was awesome.
We did it. It was like going on a spaceship, kind of.
Yeah,
You know
it
what I
was.
mean? You're like, taking the earphones off. You're like,
Thanks for letting me ramble on forever.
oh, dude, it's all good.